Lena, what do you think? Do you think Earth Sentinel is a good plan?
Yeah, I think it's cool. I think I don't want to contradict it in that sense. I do think offsetting your carbon emissions is obviously a good thing overall, but obviously the most important thing would be to not be so damaging to the planet first and foremost. I think that's something that's often overlooked, and especially in this space. I think we're often offsetting stuff, but we're not actually doing the first thing, which is not causing such detrimental damage to the environment. So I think that it's great that we can do that on Cardano, but by comparison to a lot of other blockchains. But yeah, just something to think about.
Yeah,
That's something
I
I
think
think
it is
we should really
important to provide that disincentive, though. Especially corporations. Corporations often act as in whatever is going to give them the most profit. So the only way to push them away from that is a disincentive through carbon tax, in my opinion. It has to be more expensive to hurt the planet than to do it in a non-hurting the planet way.
Absolutely.
Sure, but then there's like greenwashing as well. So some of these big corporations just do all that and then donate, and it makes them look better as well.
But you're right with the mechanic. Absolutely, you shouldn't be doing the damage. But as Peyton points out, if they have to buy $1 million worth of carbon offset credits, which are verifiable, and they're versus only $100 because they're doing less, drive them to do the things which cause less damage to the planet.
Yeah.
And that they don't, if they don't have a conscience, they're driven by cost. This is the way to inflict that pain. So I think Peyton's absolutely correct. It's going to work. Otherwise, they'll just cover it up.
One question I wanted to ask you is, where do you see the future of algorithmically generated NFTs? Because they are so interesting to me, and especially as more people think about this and more people get into it, a lot is possible in 5 years.
I mean, the original thing that I wanted to do for Unsigs was to use Oracle-based data to actively, have the thing be dynamic. I had the unlucky problem that I fell in love with what I made while I was making it, and it was just static. And I felt like as an MVP, it was good enough. I think the market kind of validated that hypothesis because we were able to sell out the 31,000 pieces for, around 900,000 ADA in sales. Now I'm retired from my job in AI development, so it worked, and now I'm working on the next version of it, which would say a further exploration of that idea, similar to what you guys are doing. I think while I was selling out, I caught some feels, as I say it. I'm a pretty unemotional person usually, but I was just so overwhelmed that people who could right click and save as were choosing to buy, and I made a uninformed tweet to say that I'm just going to give away the next thing that I do, which is going to utilize Plutus. To more directly answer your question and wrap this answer up, sorry. Right now, all of the on-chain projects, like we're not really on-chain. There's a bit of code on-chain, but it executes either in the browser through JavaScript or in my case in a Python environment off-chain. Right? But I think it would be really interesting to actually bring some of that computation directly on-chain. And I'm trying to figure out how to do that right now in Plutus, and it's quite fun. So that's where I see it. It's a little bit easier on Ethereum with these projects like Fidenza, which I only became aware of after Unsigs were released. But because all of their NFTs are embedded in smart contracts anyway, you can actually do some of that kind of computation on-chain, as I understand it. But up until this point, that's not really been possible on Cardano. So I'm running through Plutus right now for the second or third time and trying to understand it all.
What we are doing is we're facilitating expression, or whether that's a Claymate or a CryptoPunk. People are then saying, "Look, I like that. I would like to own that, or I would like to create that." So we are facilitating expression, which is basically human nature and human culture, which we should celebrate.
Most fundamental human thing, right?
Yeah.
So I want to ask you guys, the last topic is, where do you see yourself in 5 years and also your project relative to NFTs if you're still in that space?
It's an interesting question. Like something that kind of you touched on earlier is the fact that since releasing this bigger scale, so obviously Claymates have been around since April, and we were doing these small mint animations, which were kind of for fun, and it was it's quite a small, tight-knit community in that sense, like a lot of people that really loved it. And then it got to a point where obviously we were selling out quite quickly, and people were kind of asking, when one of ones, when this, when that, and we decided to do this bigger drop, which obviously went down better than we expected. But it's been 1 week since launch, and like my DMs are just full of when next drop, or what is the utility, what is your roadmap, and I kind of felt like roadmap is something that I haven't even heard that term since I was working in an office like 10 years ago. It's not really something that I instinctively associate with art or with NFTs, but it doesn't mean that I didn't see it going further. It doesn't mean that I haven't got loads of plans for the project. It's just that like having it kind of instantly available to everyone after we've just released is like kind of overwhelming me. But at the same time, like I do think we're sticking around and we have loads of plans. Something that I said and I'll continue to say for everyone that's kind of involved in the project is that I think it's better to deliver before you make promises. And so we have a lot of huge ideas, and we are hiring at the moment. But I have seen a lot of projects that have released roadmaps with things that they will, quite frankly, not be able to achieve. Yeah. And so, actions speak louder than words. We're going to deliver. We've got a lot of things. I think our success will be somewhat to do with ourselves. Our team is definitely committed and pushing forward, but it's also going to be based on the success of NFTs in general. If NFTs are thriving, then we'll be thriving. And I would hope that we'll be sticking around. But yeah, of course, like it's difficult. We know that we'll be trying our best and pushing and delivering and developing and continuing to grow. So
I'm curious on where you see Unsig in 5 years, or what
I totally agree with you guys. Like the roadmap to me is like this weird vestigial leftover of the DeFi ICO thing, right? Yeah. Where like you just pumped bags and you promised the sky, and like released an art collection, and I had no intention of like, there's no roadmap. Like this is, if you don't like the art, don't buy it. Right. And again, like it was kind of an after the fact notion when it became clear that I'd be able to quit my job because of people supporting me and essentially retire because I was financially independent. I like, wow, this is just too much. And I had to say thank you in some way. And the best way that I could come up with was promising to give, basically using smart contracts, turn unsigs into a token, which will like be redeemed from another smart contract, and then give you the next collection that I work on, which I've been calling V2, out of bad software development practices. It has nothing to do with unsigs. It's just another on-chain art collection, which will not look anything like unsigs. It won't be named unsigned algorithms. It'll just be something. But I've kind of taken the same stance as you guys. There's been some big examples of people promising the sky and then rug pulling. Like, don't buy anything that you wouldn't buy based on what they've released today, right? Like, and expect that anything that is promised, like if it happens, great, but don't count on it, right? And so it's like a extra serving of dessert after the meal, right? Like you're buying what you can see, what you're going to get in your wallet, and if you're not happy with that, don't buy it, because more often than not, these are anonymous teams or people who don't, they just owe nothing to you, right? And once the money is gone, it's gone. So
yeah, and even being in a transparent team, you don't owe anything, but you can still believe in the community, and you can still. I still want to give stuff. I don't think that I owe it, but it's like I want to deliver that because I want to take the project further. I haven't done it just so that I can stop making art, stop making people laugh, stop people creating this community and engaging. I don't owe it, but I'm still going to give it at some point, one way or another. I'm still going to give it all my all in that sense, and my team is really committed. But yeah, I think it's like a really important point because we do get hounded on it, and especially being in a really public team, I do feel quite an immense amount of pressure, especially working at input output. Like people are just in my DMs, obviously, and they know who I am. And absolutely, as I said, like we're committed, and I think that's more than a lot of teams can say, especially when you don't even know the team. So, but also it's completely fair enough to be anonymous because it is that pressure. So I kind of respect both sides of that.
The last thing I'll say before moving on to Alex is I think as someone who has a little bit of notoriety in the space, like what I've decided to do to kind of fight this a bit is like I'm not going to sell NFT collections anymore. Like they will all be minted at cost for, the round trip ADA fee plus the minting transaction, and I'm only going to collect, I might have a slightly higher royalty banked in, maybe, 5 to 10%, but like I want to set that as a standard, and I almost want to like kill the ability of people to rug pull other people. Right? Like, you what you do by doing that is you make it accessible to everyone. One thing I'm very sad about is now that the floor is around 1,250 to 1,500 ADA for unsigs. Like, I get people in my DMs who want to buy and want to participate, but like it's just too much money for them. Like, who has $4,000 to spend on a bit of code on a chain, right?
Yeah.
So I think this shifting the model to be, I only see any remuneration if the project succeeds, right? And in the long term, the project can only succeed if I actually have delivered on what I said I would, and that kind of thing. And so I think people, that becomes popular, it'll be a lot harder to rug pull, because basically the only thing that you can get out of it is nothing, right? You only see gains if people see gains on the secondary market.